Pissed off president. The Epstein conspiracy is infuriating Donald Trump. He's calling it a hoax and blaming Democrats and stupid Republicans. Those were his words, not mine. Plus, a volatile day on Wall Street. Reports that Jerome Powell may soon be out of a job threw the market out of whack. We'll tell you who does or doesn't have it out for the Fed chair. And for Pete's sake, Pete Davidson has a big announcement, and Page 6 has all the details. Those stories and more today, Thursday, July 17th. I'm Caitlyn Becker, and this is the New York Postcast. All week, I've been telling you about how the Republican Party and the MAGA base are feuding with President Trump over not releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files despite his promises to do so. And the president is over it. Lashing out on Truth Social, Trump called the Epstein conspiracy theorists in his base weaklings and said he doesn't want their support anymore. Then on Wednesday, he was asked about it in the Oval Office.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net, and so they try and do the Democrats' work. The Democrats are good for nothing other than these hoaxes.
The Epstein issue is a rare show of unity among some lawmakers, with both Dems and Republicans irritated over the DOJ's nothing to see here take on the case files. And now Jeffrey Epstein's former attorney, Alan Dershowitz, waded into the fray, writing in a Wall Street Journal op-ed, quote, "Sorry to disappoint you, but there is really nothing much to see here beyond what has already been disclosed." Now, Dershowitz also defended his former client, President Trump, saying the commander-in-chief didn't do, quote, anything improper or even questionable. And on Wednesday, one of the U.S. attorneys who prosecuted the Epstein case, Maureen Comey, was unceremoniously fired from her job as a federal prosecutor. And if the Comey name sounds familiar, it's because she's the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey. Now over to some travel news. One of the most embarrassing faux pas that you can do at an airport is forgetting that you have a bottle of water in your bag and then being shamed in front of the entire TSA line. If you've been that person, boy, do I have a little tidbit of info for you. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem wants to get rid of the TSA liquids rule. She told News Nation her department's next big announcement might be a change in what size your liquids need to be when you're flying. The current rule is that the liquids in your carry-on can't exceed 3.4 ounces. Anything over that needs to go in your checked luggage. And now this news comes a week after DHS announced that U.S. flyers no longer need to remove their shoes when going through airport security. But that's not all. Noem also teased this new scanner technology that would eliminate X-ray machines. What does that mean for us? Well, she claims that it would put an end to those massive security lines. We don't actually know what that new tech looks like, but it would reportedly be something you could just walk on through with your carry-on and head right to your gate. Now to a victory dance in Washington. The Trump administration is celebrating the president's tariffs, claiming that they've created a windfall for the country, bringing in $64 billion in revenue between April and June. That's nearly $47 billion more than the same period last year. The White House told the Post that the administration feels vindicated by the latest Treasury data, noting that countries by and large are not retaliating, and adding that the tariffs are doing what they were intended to do, force negotiations for better trade deals. But economists had feared that the tariffs would send inflation higher. So far, though, the increase has been pretty minimal, up a little more than 2% in the last year. Consumer prices, however, that is a different story. Those spiked in June by more than 2%. Now, the next date in your calendar to circle is August 1st. That's the deadline for countries who don't yet have a new deal with the administration to agree to one. If not, that Trump tariff hammer is going to drop and impose higher rates. Now to our big story. President Trump versus Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Will he? Won't he? Multiple sources tell the Post that the president wants to fire the Fed chair and that he will likely do it, quote, soon. President Trump has long criticized Powell, the man he himself appointed to the Fed back in 2018 and who President Biden reappointed in 2022. One administration insider revealed that Trump even spoke with congressional Republicans about it and got the green light for this theoretical firing. You know what markets don't like? Uncertainty at the Fed, and the headlines about Powell potentially getting the axe sent them spiraling on Wednesday. That same day, despite all the reporting to the contrary, the president was asked about it, and here's how it went.
Are you completely ruling out the idea of firing Jerome Powell?
I don't rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely.
When the president denied that he was considering the move, he also pointed out that Powell's term was coming to an end in a few months. Few is a relative term here. It's 10 months, or May 2026 to be precise. So what's really at play here? For answers on that, I'm joined now by New York Post columnist Charlie Gasparino. Charlie, the Fed chair is not as easily understood as, say, secretaries of state or defense. So can you break this down for me in the simplest terms? How does the Fed chair really impact me or you?
Well, let's back up a minute. You know, the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, so the U.S. would have a central bank that would control the money supply to help the economy essentially reach basically full employment, but have price stability, that we don't have crazy inflation, because we had bouts of inflation for, off and on for decades. So the thinking was, if you have this secondary or this agency separate from, semi-independent, the president picks the chair, that this agency could essentially, basically handle the economy, at least the money supply, in an independent way, and the chairman is the head of that. So that's what the Fed chair does. The Fed essentially basically controls, among other things, short-term interest rates, which infuses the economy with money. It's called printing money, or takes money out of the economy. When you take money out of the economy, interest rates go up. When you put money into the economy, interest rates go down. And that's essentially what the Fed does. And it tries to maintain like low employment and low inflation. It has what's known as a dual mandate. Now, for years, since 2013, you should know, presidents have gotten cross with the Fed chair. It's like Trump takes it to another level just because it's Donald Trump, and we all know what he's like. But listen, Ronald Reagan had a hard time with Paul Volcker when Paul Volcker was raising interest rates, or at least people in the Reagan administration thought that he was trying to sabotage Reagan's initial term. We had massive inflation in the early 1980s, and Reagan was cutting taxes, trying to get the economy going. And Paul Volcker, because of that inflation, was taking interest rates up dramatically. This is you can look this up. This is a historical precedent. It made Paul Volcker a hero because inflation did come down, and then the Reagan boom sort of flourished in 1983, and he was reelected, and there the story goes. So there's always been friction between presidents and Fed chair. Trump is no different, although Trump really wants this guy out. One of the problems he's got is that Powell's appointed to 4-year terms. It's a semi-independent agency. You have to show cause to get rid of him. And I know this from my reporting, and I'm going to be reporting this for the Post on Friday. There's a disagreement inside the White House as to the type of cause that could get rid of him. Can cause be he's lousy on interest rates, that he's missing the boat, that interest rates should go down now, which Trump wants because inflation is not a problem. So he's keeping interest rates too high. Is that cause? Is cause that he built this office and may have lied to Congress, as the Post reported, and this lavish $2.5 billion office, and he might have not given the entire story to Congress when he testified. There's a question about that. Is that cause? Or do they just wait? And I think what's winning right now is the argument that they wait. His term is officially over next May. If you try to get rid of him, say the cause part, he's lousy at his job, and that's hard to prove. Is that really cause under the Federal Reserve Act? The office thing, well, did he really lie to Congress? Did he misspeak? I mean, we're starting to get into sort of gray areas. Does the Supreme Court say, yeah, Trump, you can get rid of him? This is a Supreme Court that's a largely Trump appointed court, but it's also a court that doesn't like to change precedent. The precedent has always been, you let the Fed chair, barring, wicked illegality, you let him and like just really, really, really gross mismanagement that could constitute cause in a very strict legal sense, you let him finish out his term. So I think that's where we are right now.
This was a much needed primer on what the heck the Federal
Interest
Reserve
rates.
is and interest rates and how it functions. Charlie Gasparino, thank you so much for joining us.
You got it. Thanks.
There's a new twist in a disturbing story I brought you yesterday. The tragic double homicide of an American Idol executive and her husband. A 22-year-old is in custody for allegedly executing Robin Kay and Thomas DeLuca inside of their Encino, California home. Neighbors tell the Post that the suspect is a known local menace who's been arrested multiple times and described him as a, quote, junkie. And there definitely seems to be something to those accusations there, that he would repeatedly loiter in the area, terrifying the locals. The CEO of a private security firm said Kay had contacted his company in the weeks before the murder. Now, she didn't hire them, but she told him that she was scared of, quote, somebody around their home or around their neighborhood who felt suspicious. The couple had been away earlier this month when neighbors first called cops about a dodgy person in the area of their home. And when they returned, police believed that they walked in on their killer robbing the house, and so they were shot to death. Locals say the affluent Southern California neighborhood has been plagued in the last year with home invasions. And finally, from our friends at Page 6, Pete Davidson's got that BDE, Big Dad energy. The king of Staten Island is about to sire a prince or princess. Davidson and his current girlfriend, model and actress Elsie Hewitt, are expecting their first baby. Now, she posted a picture to Instagram of a barely dressed Davidson who's sporting a lot less body art these days, with his hand on her baby bump. And the caption read, "Welp, now everyone knows we had sex." Gee, that's a sweet and precious memory. They should really frame that one for the little one, who, by the way, Page 6 hears is set to arrive early this winter. So congratulations to the happy family. Going down the Pete Davidson dating history rabbit hole is a trip. You can find all that good stuff at the New York Post in print or online. And let's you and I start our weekend together tomorrow. So like and subscribe to the New York Postcast wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube so you don't miss it. And until then, I'll miss you.